Do you think that the Supreme Court, as it's made up now, do you think that Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh owe it to Donald Trump to find a ruling, let's say in this 14th Amendment case where some states are trying to keep him off the ballot?
Yes, I do. I think they do owe him because, they're there because of him. And I think that would be the right thing to do, considering that, all these things against him are nonsense.
Well, right, but that's for them to adjudicate. But you think, forgetting the nonsense, aside from that, that they would owe it to him?
Yes.
So the idea of an independent judiciary, though, goes down a slippery slope there, does it not?
Yes.
They're saying that the 14th Amendment is going to be tested at the Supreme Court to keep him off the ballot in certain places. Do you think that the justices that he appointed to the Supreme Court, that they owe it to Donald Trump to vote against that?
They're going to go with Trump because of what Trump stands for.
Judge Michael Ludig wrote a friend of the court brief, and it makes a distinction between Trump's efforts to hold on to power after the 2020 election and the South Carolina secession, which, of course, led to the Civil War. Ludig argues that unlike the secession of South Carolina, Trump, quote, tried to prevent, quote, the newly elected president from governing anywhere in the United States.
He continues, quote, Trump incited and therefore engaged in an armed insurrection against the Constitution's express and foundational mandates that require the peaceful transfer of executive power to a newly elected president. In doing so, Mr. Trump disqualified himself under Section 3 of the Constitution.
We find ourselves here dealing with the trauma that is Donald Trump. Now, what I'm talking about specifically is the Supreme Court taking up this case about if he has disqualified himself constitutionally. And if you listen to what these people are saying in this report on CNN, you hear that all of this is coming from Republicans. The idea that Trump is unconstitutionally applying himself on the ballots or trying to be on the ballots in these states to run for president. But his actions from January the 6th, his actions leading up to January the 6th, has disqualified him because of Clause 3.
He's really appealing to conservative principles,
yes,
like textualism.
That was interesting as part of it. He's saying this is how you need to read it. You're a court that tends to read things this way, at least the majority.
Exactly. I think that's what's going to be powerful here. He's looking at the conservative bench, the conservative justices, and he's saying this is how, for decades, conservative scholars have read statutes, have read the Constitution. And if you basically stick true to conservative principles, you will arrive at the conclusion that the former president is not eligible to be president again.
These are not democratic ideas. They came from, one, the Constitution, but they were presented in the current context from Republicans. And this brief, friend of the court brief, was filed by a retired conservative judge. But check this out. This judge is not the only person that has written briefs. There's been hundreds of pages. The Supreme Court has been flooded with briefs since they agreed to take up Colorado's case. Some of them, of course, Republican stakeholders, elected officials, all of the members from Congress, of course, wrote briefs in support of Donald Trump, of course. But the legal scholars, they've been proponents of this conservative judge. Now, let me blow your mind. Out of all these hundreds of pages of briefs filed with the Supreme Court, only one Democrat at the state or federal level has asked the Supreme Court to step in. And in doing so, Jocelyn Bench out of Michigan, the Secretary of State in Michigan, she didn't even take a position on whether Trump was disqualified or not. She just asked the Supreme Court to give her a decisive decision on the matter. So when people are saying that they're attacking Trump, they're bringing these cases against Trump to muddy the voting or to voter suppress against Trump, they're lying. Unless they're saying Republicans are against Trump. These are not Democrats. This is the facts that we should deal with. These are not Democrats bringing these cases. Everybody who's testified against Trump has been a Republican. These are people from his circle. These are not Democrats. But our political ethos is so dumb right now that you can just lie about stuff because of social media, and it doesn't have to be fact-checked, and people run with it. We've become so addicted to fandom that we gave up on ideas and moral codes, and also the belief that the Constitution is more important than the person. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame. But the world will say Democrats are trying to block Trump from the ballot, when in actuality, these ideas came from Republicans, and not just Republican Federalist Society members. These are the most conservative folk. So y'all get y'all house in order before y'all start pointing fingers. I'm Mondale Robinson. Don't be a friend of Trump.